So I want you to imagine a newborn baby placed inside of a sterile plastic bubble, unable to play outside or be touched with extreme caution. Why? Because even the tiniest germ, something harmless to you, could kill them. Severe combined immunodeficiency is one of the most severe immune system disorders that we know of. It means that the baby's defense army, like T cells and B cells, are missing or not functioning properly. Without these cells, the body cannot fight infections, leading to life-threatening illness. Severe combined immunodeficiency is caused by a genetic mutation that prevents immune cells from developing properly. Think of it like a factory malfunction, where the body tries to produce immune cells but end up making defective or missing parts. Without these cells, patients are vulnerable to life-threatening infections. There are three major causes of SCID. The first one is cytokine receptor defects. This is the most common type of severe combined immunodeficiency, accounting for approximately 46 to 60% of cases. This condition is inherited in an X-linked recessive pattern, meaning the mutated gene responsible is located on the X chromosome. In males who have one X and one Y chromosome, a single altered copy of the gene in the cell is sufficient to cause a condition. In females who have two X chromosome, a mutation would need to occur in both copies of the gene to cause a disorder, making it less common in females. So in cytokine receptor defects, basically what happens is the cytokines are like text messages between the immune cells, telling them when to grow, fight, or help. In X-linked SCID, a mutation in the IL-2RY gene or interleukin-2 receptor gamma chain means immune cells never receive these messages and fail to mature. The key features of the disease is there's no T cells, meaning no immune response to viruses, fungi, or intracellular bacteria. There's no natural killer cells, leading to increased susceptibility to viral infections and cancers. And also B cells are present, but they are dysfunctional. Why? Because they rely on the helper T cells to function properly. Because we have no T cells, the B cells will not operate properly. The presentation of the disease is recurrent viral, fungal, and bacterial infections in an infant within the first few months of life. They often have persistent diarrhea, failure to thrive, and absent thymic shadow on an X-ray. So there's no T cells because remember, T cells go to the thymus to mature. The second form of the disease is adenosine deaminase or ADA deficiency. This is the second most common cause of SCID and follows autosomal recessive inheritance is a pattern where a trait or disorder manifests only when an individual inherits two copies of a mutated gene, one from each parent. These genes are located on the autosomes, which are the 22 non-sex chromosomes present in both males and females. There's equal gender distribution. Both males and females are equally likely to inherit and express the autosomal recessive traits. The problem that happens is normally the enzyme adenosine deaminase, or ADA, breaks down adenosine, a waste product from DNA metabolism. However, in ADA deficiency, adenosine accumulates and becomes toxic, killing developing immune cells before they mature. The key features of this disease is that there's no T cells, there's no B cells, and there's no natural killer cells. There's also severe lymphopenia, very low lymphocyte count or white blood cells, and also absent thymic shadow on an X-ray. The classical presentation is severe infections from birth, no thymic shadow on an X-ray, absent thymic tissue, absent lymphoid tissue, so no tonsils or no lymph nodes, and also failure to thrive. The second type of the disease is MHC class II deficiency, also known as Barre lymphocyte syndrome type 2. So MHC class II deficiency is inherited in an autosomal recessive pattern as well. This means the affected individual must inherit two defective copies of the gene, one from each parent. They are typically carriers, heterozygous, and do not show symptoms. MHC class II molecules act like a whiteboard that displays enemy threats, or antigens to CD4 positive helper T cells, meaning they never activate the immune system. The key features are CD4 positive T cells are present but non-functional. B cells are present but cannot activate properly, so there's no antibodies. There's low immunoglobulin or Ig levels, and functionally, the patient has SCID even though T and B cells are present. Remember that the MHC class II receptor is how antigens are presented to T cells. So if there's not an ability to express antigens on MHCs, there's no way to recognize threats within the body. So the classical presentations is going to be recurrent infection in infancy, low CD4 positive T cell function despite normal lymphocyte counts, and hypogammaglobulinemia, meaning there's low immunoglobulin levels. The symptoms, regardless of the different 3 types of diseases we talked about, the symptoms are the same. Babies with SCID seem normal at birth but soon develop several symptoms. It's also known as the bubble baby signs. The first is the severe infections, the bacterial, viral, fungal, or protozoa, chronic diarrhea and failure to thrive because they can't fight gut infections, persistent thrush, oral candidiasis, absent lymphoid tissue, so there's going to be no tonsils, no lymph nodes, and no thymic shadow on chest x-ray. This is a general example, but these are often what you'll see. The key takeaways, remember, warning, live vaccines like MMR, rotavirus, BCG are deadly to SCID. This is because your body can't fight infections. So how do we diagnose SCID? Newborn screening is very high yield. There's also something called the Treg, which is T cell receptor excision circles. This basically measures the recent T cell development in newborns. So if there's low T cell development, no T cells, think SCID. Also, flow cytometry. This checks CD3 positive T cells, which for whatever reason are absent in SCID. They may show B and natural killer cell variation depending on the SCID type. Also, genetic testing. This confirms the IL-2RY mutation that you see on X-linked SCID, ADA mutations, or the MHC2 deficiency. A chest x-ray is also very common because if there's an absent thymic shadow, this is a hallmark sign of SCID. The treatment, which often people refer to as the only hope, due to the fact that babies can't fight infection and have a very hard time living, the first is the bubble isolation, which is short-term. Until a cure is available, babies need extreme infection control, so they're placed inside of a bubble. They live in completely sterile environments. Another one is bone marrow transplantation. This is the cure, the only definitive treatment. This replaces defective immune system with new, healthy stem cells because remember that the cells come from the bone marrow. Also, ADA enzyme replacement therapy for ADA deficiency. This provides missing ADA enzymes used as a bridge to bone marrow transplantation. Also, intravenous IG provides temporary antibody support since B cells don't work, and antibiotic and antifungal prophylaxis. This prevents opportunistic infections. There's a very high yield chart I made for you guys. So here are the 3 different subtypes of SCID we talked about. So with X-linked SCID, the problem is an IL-2RY mutation. The inheritance is X-linked recessive. This is the most common. T cells and natural killer cells are absent, but B cells are present and non-functional. Why are they non-functional? Because B cells require T cells for antigen switching. The key clue is recurrent infections and absent thymic shadow. The next we have the ADA deficiency. Remember, ADA, the enzyme adenosine deaminase, is used to detoxify purine metabolism. So if there's a genetic defect in adenosine deaminase, there's going to be absent cells because the adenosine becomes toxic within the body, killing all of these cells. You'll see severe lymphopenia, absent lymphoid tissue, and toxic metabolite accumulation. The last one we have is MHC class II deficiency. This is a transcription factor mutation, and it's autosomal recessive. Basically, all cells are going to be present, but they can't present antigens on MHC class II. So what you'll see is hypogammaglobulinemia, low CD4 positive T cell function. I would recommend taking a picture of this chart and reviewing it. So let's just jump into a few practice questions. So like I always tell you, start with reading the last sentence, then read your answer choices, then read the entire question. So if you chose C, that is correct. Remember, this infant has X-linked SCID, severe combined immunodeficiency, which presents with recurrent severe infections, chronic diarrhea, and failure to thrive due to a complete lack of functional T and natural killer cells. IL-2RYG mutation leads to defective cytokine signaling, preventing T and natural killer cell development while leaving B cells present but non-functional. The absent thymic shadow on X-ray confirms severe T cell deficiency. Question number 2, so I'll go ahead and give you a few minutes, then we'll come back and review the question. So if you chose C, toxic accumulation of purine metabolites, that's correct. So the presence of profound lymphopenia, absent thymic shadow, and deoxyadenosine accumulation is characteristic of adenosine deaminase deficiency, the second most common cause of SCID, which is autosomal recessive. ADA is responsible for breaking down adenosine, and without it, toxic purine metabolites accumulate and destroy developing T, B, and natural killer cells. Lastly, we'll go into one more question. I'll go ahead and give you a few minutes, and we'll come back and review. If you chose C, that is correct. Failure of MHC class II expression. So this patient has the MHC class II deficiency, also known as BEAR. lymphocyte syndrome type 2, which prevents CD4 positive T cells from being activated and leads to defective B cell activation. This then leads to low immunoglobulin and hypogammaglobulinemia. CD4 positive T cells are present but non-functional, leading to poor immune coordination despite the presence of T and B cells. So that concludes our video for today. I know it was a very condensed, very high-yield video. I'd recommend watching this video several times and also checking out the healingpowerofnature.com and also our Patreon for some more resources. Thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.